I started exploring my psychic and mediumship abilities because I noticed that they were coming online in really undeniable ways. I remember a particular incident happening when I was doing a Forbes event. Actually, I was hosting it with Forbes for the top wealth advisors. And it was where clairaudience started coming online for me. And I realized I actually had an incident where a client's brother who was in spirit came through for me at that event and for his brother. And it was a very emotional moment and very unexpected. And this is when I started realizing, man, I am deeply driven. I am deeply motivated, but it's not in the way that I thought it was.
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Soul. Thank you for tuning in today, investing your time and energy in today's episode. I don't take it lightly. I know our time is our currency and it's our energy. So thank you for that. I'm super excited for today's guest. We have Marston Fries. She is a former Wall Street VP, an investment consultant turned psychic intuitive advisor, medium, author, and consciousness guide. After a profound spiritual awakening catalyzed by personal loss, Marston left her former life behind and stepped fully into her soul-led path, exploring the nature of consciousness, grief as initiation, and humanity's interconnected future. Marston, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. I'm super excited to see what comes through and chat about all the things.
Who are you and who are you not?
My biggest thing is that we don't fit in a box. And we've been raised in a society that wants to put us in a box. And I get asked all the time from people, how do I categorize you? Like, what do you do? Because they try to put me in a box like psychic medium or intuitive channel or author or mentor. It's like this, or this rather than all of it. And so, I mean, my favorite example of this is when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out together. I was always like, I want Barbie and Oppenheimer. I resonate with both. It shouldn't have to be this or that. So, I am a multifaceted being who is a psychic medium, is an intuitive channel, was a Wall Street executive, and it's this and. So for me, it's really about the limitless possibilities that exist for us to be whatever and whoever we want to be.
Beautiful. And I think you already answered the who am I not, right? Like you're not someone who fits in that box. That's a beautiful answer. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm super interested to just hear more about the version of you before you came into your full expression of who you are today. All of these beautiful, labels and titles that you can access and tap into. But the Marston before that, your life on Wall Street and that identity.
Yeah.
What was your life like? What was going on? And then what prompted you to even shift out of that lifestyle?
Honestly, it's funny because I think about this all the time. I think the people who were closest to me, many of them, when I made this transition, to them it appeared to be an overnight transition. They were like, who are you? I thought you were this person in my life, when really I wasn't even changing anything about me. I was really just starting to express more of who I really am, the things that I once kept quiet or didn't think worthy of sharing with people. And so it's funny to think about this because now I'm just saying everything out loud. And before, when I was on Wall Street, it was very much it was a curated life for sure. And I was raised, like many of us are, to believe that there's a right and a wrong way of going about life, a right and a wrong way of presenting oneself and appearing in society, so to speak. And when I was on Wall Street in my asset management career, it was very much focused on accomplishments. I mean, that was the measure of success, and it was very material, and it was very ego driven in many ways. That entire industry is, it's very male dominated. But what's interesting is I remember looking back, and I started to pay attention. I want to say this was around 2020, 2021. I started paying more attention to synchronicities, like the magic that I could experience in the mundane and in my daily life. And just little things here and there, like something that happened in nature on a walk outside, or seeing repeating license plate numbers. It was the little things that started to take on more meaning for me. And it started to prompt more of a curiosity and a sense of wonder. What else is out there? And what if I keep pulling this thread? And I realized that the more I got curious, the more that opened up to me. And then I started realizing, oh, I'm kind of receiving these thoughts, which I now know to be downloads. And it's something that I operate off of every single day and help clients with. But I started receiving downloads on ideas and future visions. And I didn't realize what was happening at the time. I just knew that something was coming in that felt really, really good. And it would give me chills. I found myself not even really caring as much about the day to day of my work and thinking, man, I want to explore this further. I want to see what else exists for me here. And then that's when more started to open up and it really just became this snowball effect.
Beautiful. I love that. The curiosity that guides us.
Yeah.
It's like little breadcrumbs or like a little
Mhm.
glitter here and there. And next thing you know, it's like gently carrying you into deeper curiosity. And then as our willingness, expands and we're accepting of it, we're like, oh yeah, I could dabble in this. I could see where this goes. We play
Yeah.
around with the energy and work and start to work with it in our own way.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about was the passing of your former partner
Hmm.
and what that was like, and and what did that open up for you, or how did you navigate that tough time of grieving?
It was incredible, in the worst way and in the best way, because it shattered everything that I thought I knew about everything. I mean, here I was excelling in my career. I was vice president at age 27, and I was really I was such a driven and motivated person. And I always equated that with my career, and that was heavy programming and conditioning. But I thought when he passed, it was the most profound catalyst for me, because I found out after he passed, which it was very sudden, it was very unexpected, very tragic. I was with him when it happened. And um, I found out after the fact that he had been deeply dishonest with me about a lot. And so here I was trying to reconcile meaning, with this person who was no longer in his body. So I was trying to do this, in spirit from beyond the grave. And I started seeking out mediums, psychics to try to connect. And I always believed in that. I mean, there was something in me that always, even before I started doing this, I always knew that there was something to this, even like since I was a little kid. And they were all telling me the same thing. They were saying, you're not meant to stay in your finance career that much longer. You're actually meant to be helping a lot of people. And you yourself are a psychic medium. And I remember being like, what? Like a deeper part of me knew that that was true. But I could not reconcile on the surface, given my external reality at the time. I was thinking, I just stepped into this promotion that I'm now making the money that I've always wanted to make. I have the prestige I've always wanted. I look and feel great. And, I had who I thought was the love of my life. And so this completely flipped everything upside down for me. And what I realized after this was I actually don't want to help financial advisors, pick investment vehicles that will suit their clients' needs. I want to help in a different way. And I know there's a bridge here at some point that can bridge these worlds. I just don't know what that is yet. All I know is I'm being pulled very heavily to explore my own inner world, and it catapulted me into this realm, this unexplored realm of deep, deep, deep dark healing. And I'm talking like everything. It was a complete identity crisis, because I just remember thinking, oh my God, like what are people going to think about me? And our relationship was kept private, for our career, because we were in the same role, but for competitor firms.
Ah,
Yes. So it impacted every single area of my life. And it was meant to be, we were meant to take it public, later that year, but he died late October. And so that never had the chance to be what we intended for it to be. And so it's like everything was cut short. And I just remember feeling like I just got robbed, like the universe robbed me of everything. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? And so I started exploring my psychic and mediumship abilities because I noticed that they were coming online in really undeniable ways. Even when I was with clients, I remember a particular incident happening when I was doing a Forbes event. Actually, I was hosting it with Forbes for the top wealth advisors. And it was, I'm not going to get into all the details of it right now unless you want to talk about it, but it was where clairaudience started coming online for me. And I realized I actually had an incident where a client's brother who was in spirit came through for me at that event and for his brother. And it was a very emotional moment and very unexpected. And this is when I started realizing, man, I am deeply driven. I am deeply motivated, but it's not in the way that I thought it was. I wasn't, and it's funny, I had this whole moment of reconciliation with myself and that identity of Marston, who had been the Wall Street VP, who had climbed the ladder of success, and I was like, man, it's not that I'm not motivated or driven, it's that this is unaligned. And so that it was a really intense healing process.
Mm. So like, yeah, it just sounds like that was like the shift.
Yeah.
That was the transition from old identity into whatever you were or are becoming. Um, and that's so interesting that clairaudience dropped in for you in a public setting. I'm
Yeah.
clairaudient as well, and it's, I'm easily overwhelmed in a public setting. So a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially when I learned how to monitor and have boundaries and have it
Mhm.
on when I want to have it on, when I want to have it off, that type of thing. Like, but still, I've found myself wanting to access it in public and not feeling like I was completely tapped in as much as I am with clients or in my own private space or when I'm on Zoom with someone. Um, but that's so interesting. So was that the first time it was dropping in? Was that moment at that Forbes event, or was that more of just a stronger experience than previous ones?
I had been experiencing it before, but it was the first time that I was really acutely aware of it, of what it was, because it was after meeting with these mediums and psychics who were telling me, you are, and that like this, this is real. And I was like, oh, I've been receiving this information the whole time. I just, I thought that you think that's how everyone operates, right? And if you don't know, it's like a kid growing up with a certain mentality or experiencing the reality a certain way, they just assume that everyone else experiences that too. And this was just a part of my daily normal life, and it was a muscle I didn't know how to strengthen. It was a muscle I didn't even know I had. It's like doing Pilates and being really sore the next day because you're like, wait, I didn't even know I had muscles there, and they're really sore. So this was really the first time it was expressed. I'll say publicly for sure. And I'd started to get ear ringing after he died in my left ear. And so it was interesting because it kind of presented that way at the event. And then it led to so much more with the client and his brother coming through.
Wow, what a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about grief. Most of us, think of it as this heavy loss
Mhm.
energy. And yes, that's probably part of the experience for most of us. But like, what are some other ways, whether it's based on your experience with grief or just your perspective, what are some other ways on how we can see grief instead of just looking at it like, oh my gosh, grief is just losing someone. It's just, or losing things or losing identity or losing money. It's just loss. That's all it is. Sometimes we could have that rigid belief and we just want to like ignore it or block it or resist it. How can we see grief differently?
I love that question. What comes to me right now is it's an opportunity and a calibration. And that this is how I see grief. It's an opportunity for so many things. And oftentimes we're taught, especially in Western society, that it's a linear process. And that's just not the case. Like it's like it needs to finish at some point. You should be over it at some point, or just move on with your life. And and I think grief can be such a beautiful gift, actually, when you really let it simmer, because in the grief is information. It's information about love and about how it's an opportunity to reflect on that love, and it's an opportunity to reflect on your whole life, really. It's kind of like a pause slash reset button. And I think grief, it doesn't have to be this heavy thing all the time. I mean, it gets to be. It absolutely gets to be. And it also gets to be an opportunity for deep soul calibration, for deep soul healing, to explore
Mm.
yourself that really haven't gotten to be explored yet. That's how it was for me. I opened up all these nooks and crannies within my soul that I didn't even know existed, and I wouldn't have known existed. But this really forced me to see, why is this happening? Like, there has to be something bigger. And
Mm.
so I think I get, yeah, I guess that's how I'll put it. It can be an opportunity and a gift in that way. We can't control what happens to us, but we can absolutely control how we respond to it, and how we move forward, because everything is just information. And then that dictates how we transmute. And transmutation is practiced. It's not overnight.
Yes, absolutely. And did it open up things for you because you were finally like addressing emotions? I imagine if we don't, with your lifestyle, Wall Street VP, climbing the ladder, ambition, you
Mhm.
know, um, I imagine it's like, or you tell me, were you tapping into your emotions prior to losing someone so close to you? And then what was it about it? Like like was it just because it changed your routine, or did you just start to pay more attention to your heart, and like that like grief's an emotion that we can't ignore. It just, well, some of us still try, right? But it'll come right back around for you. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it'll come knocking. That's a great question. I actually was really good about exploring my emotions prior to this happening, and I'm really grateful for that, because if this had happened without my having done any of the inner work prior to this, I don't know how I would have been able to handle it, to be honest with you. I felt that I was equipped at the time, with the right tools that I needed, because I had started exploring my own inner healing. Um, just for a couple years prior to that, I kind of started to go deep in all of this. And that being said, when this happened, I was forced to really look at myself in a much different way, to look at my shadows that I really wasn't seeing before, to look at how I had been identifying myself, and to look at where I was self-sacrificing, where I was self-abandoning. And so I didn't see that before. I was doing the inner work, right? And the shadow work. I was exploring my emotional regulation and expression. Yes, but this really took it to a whole nother level for me. And it did affect my routines too, because I started realizing, man, that if something like this happens, I cannot just go back to my life. Like, this doesn't happen for me to just go back to everything. There's no way. But that was a choice that I made. I could have gone back, but I chose to listen to my soul.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And it's like once you were opened up to so much, it's like, oh yeah, now I have something to choose from.
Yeah. Yeah, we remember our choice, our sovereignty.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So interesting. And so I want to go back to something else you said. I also agree that grief is not a linear process the way it's taught. I forgot the person's name, but someone has like 5 stages of grief. There's another person that has like
Mhm.
9 stages of grief. I mean, I think that those people also might, whoever has those frameworks, I think they also say that it's not linear, but somehow in translation, when we're sharing stages of grief,
Mhm.
it's still delivered in a linear format.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So how can we, what are your thoughts if we're practicing having more awareness around it not being this linear process? We're not placing expectations on ourselves to have to get over it, right?
Yeah.
Or to
Yeah.
move on, quote unquote, within a year or 2 years or whatever it is. How else can we start to change our relationship with this or think about it?
I love talking about this because it really is so powerful, and it's something that we tend to shy away from. And I think there are so many different forms of grief. That's what's coming through right now. Yes, there's the death, there's the loss, but there's also the less obvious grief too that I experienced when I started speaking publicly about my story. I knew it was kind of like coming out of the closet. But going back to our conversation before about like labels and boxes, like what I was talking about was so much more comprehensive, that it couldn't be put in a box. And I think people had trouble labeling that, and what we don't understand we tend to fear, and what we fear we tend to reject. And so I think I lost a lot of people, because of this, because they didn't understand, how to label me, or how to view me anymore, or how to categorize me. And what is not really talked about enough, and I noticed this a lot, in my clients, and from sharing my story on social media, when I had thousands of people around the world reach out telling me that they resonated with this because they felt that they couldn't talk to anyone about this in their community. They felt misunderstood. That's the form of grief that we really don't talk about. It's the sort of invisible losses that aren't really tangible losses. It's just kind of the fading away of what is no longer aligned. And I think that's another layer of grief in all of this. So I think speaking about grief linearly is kind of like speaking about it in terms of being black and white. Like there's one form of grief, and it's this, and it looks like this, and this is how you handle it. And everybody processes grief differently. And I feel like it's, for me, my sister actually gave this example, and I loved it. And I don't know where it comes from initially or originally, but it's kind of like a bouncy ball in a box. And the ball at first is just bouncing all around. It's hitting the sides, it's going up and down, ceiling, floor, everything, and it's chaotic energy and it's frenzied. Over time, it starts to slow down. And every once in a while, it gets to a point where every once in a while, it'll hit the wall and you'll feel it. And every once in a while, be that jab of pain. But it's not as frequent anymore. And I want to be clear here, because this is, I think, an important thing to discuss. I don't think that it's because the grief stops necessarily or slows down. I think it's because we continue. We don't stop. We continue in our healing. We continue, and it's easy to get stuck. It's easy to latch on. I've seen this all the time with people. They will latch on to the loss and they won't be able to move forward. They get stuck, right? And so it really does become a choice for us in how we move forward in a situation like this. It doesn't mean we move on. It's just how we move forward and what we continue to place our focus and attention on. And if we divert it away from what we lost and turn it into what are we gaining here from this? How can I love myself more? How can I heal in new ways that I didn't know I could before? It's almost like reclaiming a superpower that's really inherent in each one of us, but we were never taught how to alchemize it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. It reminds me of the book that I read, Grief is Love. Have you read that one?
Yeah, I haven't. No, but I've heard of it.
Okay, yeah, it's just along the lines of just the whole concept, um, of just embracing it and just allowing yourself to have that bouncy ball experience and
Yeah.
to just embrace it when it happens and not judging it
Hmm.
and not locking in either. I've also seen people lock in on the loss,
Yeah.
and they keep themselves there. I think when I was younger, when I saw my parents grieving, because I was an intuitive child, well, I started to turn off my abilities after 5, but like up until then, I was very tapped in with everything.
Hmm.
And for some reason, there was a lot of passings when I was below 5,
Yeah.
just like in the family, not like extended family members, things like that.
Mhm.
But I remember like thinking like as a kid, I remember thinking like, oh, mommy and daddy must not know that that person's still around. Like
Yeah.
their spirit is still here. They just need to change the relationship. They just need to see what I see. They just need to like tap in. And not everyone is wants to access that for themselves. Not
Right.
everyone wants to be a medium. Not everyone wants to
Yeah.
channel in all the energetics all the time. But I do think that it's important for us to also understand, you could tell me your thoughts,
Mhm.
that our relationship with the person that we lost, or even the identity that we're
Mhm.
feeling like we lost, we still have a relationship with her. If it's your identity, we still have a relationship with the person. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, Vanessa, because that's something I wanted to bring up earlier, and I forgot, but that was a huge opportunity for me in my boyfriend's passing, was to sort of walk into the next stage of our relationship in a way, um, through this healing, through the veil. And it's funny, one of the mediums I met with had actually told me, his job on the other side now is to sort of serve as a guide for you, and to lead you into this next phase for you. Like, he's getting you onto your highest timeline. And so I think it was really interesting because I actually remember, it's kind of a funny story. 2 weeks before he passed, I said out loud, I had just started exploring communicating with my spirit guides, and I had experienced enough synchronicities at that point that I knew I was communicating, and I knew. So it was like things were kind of leading up to this, but 2 weeks before he passed, I said, spirit guides, if I am not meant to marry this man, I'm going to need serious divine intervention, because I'm going to marry him. And 2 weeks later, he died. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, my spirit guides killed him. And it was this whole thing. In one of my mediumship sessions with him, where he was coming through, the person who was reading, it was so funny because she was like, he's saying you have a very powerful spirit team. I just remember being like, oh my God, they really did kill him. And so we were able to have this sort of like these inside jokes that we didn't necessarily have before. And it was really cool because he was teaching me how to tap into my own clair abilities, how to trust it. And man, it got so strong, and I could feel him in these really pronounced ways. And what I've noticed in sessions with clients since I started doing this professionally is the sheer level of, and it never ceases to feel, what's the word I'm looking for, just immensely profound. It doesn't get normal. Is to witness that level of emotion that comes when they receive a very clear synchronicity or proof. Like this, the loved one that they're wanting to talk to on the other side comes through me and says something very specific, and just the look on their face, it's just like, oh my God, he really is there. Oh my God, I really have been talking to him. That sign really was from him. And I think that knowing can not only help the fear that we have of death, but the fear that we have of really living and exploring more of ourselves.
Ah, why do we have this fear of living? Or what does it look like? Maybe we don't know why, but what is, because that just hit home. Like that just, it gave me chills. Like there's
Yeah.
something that it's like that really resonated with me, because I think I've seen that in myself and other people in
Yes.
phases.
Yes. I think it's because we understand inherently, and this is, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but we understand inherently the finite nature of our life here. And so there's this fear of, well, if I really stepped outside the box and, did something that I don't know what the result will look like, because it hasn't been done before, it hasn't been proven, there's no blueprint for this, then I risk losing the comfort that I now know in my life. I risk losing the known. I potentially risk losing people. And I think that that's what keeps people stuck in their patterns and in complacency and settling, is because the unknown is far scarier to them, right? That and uncomfortable. And to them they deem it's not worth exploring because it might be uncomfortable and they don't know what's going to happen or what will unfold.
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's the unknown, right? And
Yeah,
then our logical mind, our ego that wants to protect us just goes into the worst case scenario
of course. Yeah,
because we
yeah.
want to try to predict something if it's
Mhm.
unknown, and then we're like, and then we just pick worst case scenario. Like, yes, I am, my family won't talk to me again if I come out of the spiritual closet. You can come up with any example, you guys, you know what's going on in your life. And
Yeah.
and that can keep us from just doing, what we're called to do, what we're drawn towards, what's resonating
Yes.
with us.
It's amazing because I think about everything exists as a probability in the quantum field. It's not what's possible, it's what's probable. And so our ego, right, you mentioned will go to worst case scenario. Yes, that exists as a probability because everything is probable and possible. But if you're going to go to worst case scenario, then you owe it to yourself to at least explore the laws of physics enough to honor the fact that if this can exist, then there must be something of equal and opposable force on the other side. And that's what I said after he died was, oh my God, if something beyond my wildest nightmares can happen, then there has to be, by the laws of physics, something beyond my wildest dreams that is possible for me to experience.
Mm, that's a powerful inquiry, and like just a way to anchor yourself in possibility. I think,
Yeah.
think about what's possible. Some of us struggle with anchoring ourselves in something, but that was your anchor.
Mhm.
Okay, what's the complete opposite of this worst case scenario?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
still an anchor. That's still direction. It directs you away from that worst case scenario. And
Exactly.
now you're just optimistic. Now you're receptive. You're open. I absolutely love that. You know, I have another question around grief before we might start to shift into some other themes for today. What is the difference between surviving grief and being transformed by it?
Oh my gosh, the way I just got full body chills from that question. Oh, let me sit with that for a second. What I'm hearing right now is it's a matter of letting grief move through you. It's an energy, right? It's an energy that needs movement, that needs to be able to breathe just like everything. And I think when we're surviving grief, which I was, don't get me wrong, and I think that is a big part of the process. There are those points where you just need to get through. But for the for the bigger transformation to take effect, I think what it requires is honoring the nonlinear process of it. I think, just like anything, grief exists spatially. This is how I view time, quantum time. We experience it linearly, sure, because we're experiencing it through the present moment and we're moving from one moment to the next to the next. But it exists spatially. And so I think of grief as the same thing. Sometimes you're over here in the US. Sometimes you're over in Spain on a beach, and sometimes you're in a place that feels very foreign to you and you don't necessarily know how to navigate it because you've never experienced anything like that. And then sometimes it feels like you're at home and you're able to really sink into it. And I think the transformation happens in allowing yourself to be taken to places that are foreign, that are scary, that you haven't experienced or navigated before.
Wow. Yeah, that's so beautifully said. I love the way you put that.
Thank you.
So now I want to shift into just talking about more of expanding consciousness, the spiritual awakenings that are accelerating or happening right now. Um, just like with society, like I feel like in 2026, there might be, we might grieve, we all might start to grieve something collective, whether it was a facade or an illusion or, just things being hidden. I feel like some of us might witness that in others where it's just like we're grieving something, we're grieving the illusion that we once had, could be. I mean, there's so many layers to what's happening collectively in 2026. I'm just speaking generally. Um, do you have any thoughts on grief and spiritual awakenings and collective energy? Anything coming through for you around that?
It's a big year for grief. I mean, we're at the very beginning right now of finding out the truth of a lot of things that we don't necessarily care to even know the truth of, because it is that shocking and it is that devastating. And I think the number one thing that keeps coming through for me, in terms of downloads of how to speak about this, is it's important to acknowledge what's going on, absolutely. But it's also just as important to direct our energy and focus to how we're going to come together from this and how we're going to build from this. And the way that I think about this is, creation can only happen, in the ashes of destruction. It's there needs to be something that creates space for something new. It's the same, really the same thing with grief. What you asked about with grief and transformation. How do you allow grief to be transformative? You allow it to be a center of destruction, but also it's the womb space. It's a center for creation, and it's the void, and it's in the void that we create. And so I think this is I love that how this conversation has evolved, because we're really stepping into a time of collective grief on a global scale. And a lot of people won't know how to integrate this grief into their nervous systems, into their bodies, right? Because they've never been taught how to do that. We've never been taught how to do that. A lot of people have never explored their own inner shadows and their own healing. And so this is a time where healing is more important than ever on a global scale. And that looks different for everyone, but ultimately it's on an individual level first, right? It's if you heal yourself, you expand you begin to raise your vibration, you begin to expand your consciousness into new realms of possibility or probabilities, into new experiences and new ways of being, which allows you to then have that sort of impact on other people and to help them heal. I view it as we're all a puzzle piece for each other's puzzle. We all have our own magic, we all have our own medicine. And during this time of immense grieving that we're starting to experience now. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've been in a period of grieving for a while, right? But now it's getting to a point where we can't look away any longer. And
Yeah.
when we're faced with that truth, we only have one option, and it's okay, this is happening, and what are we going to do about it? How do we move forward?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, beautifully said. And also, even just going back to your experience and tying it into this collective grief that most of us might start to navigate or continue to navigate for 2026,
Mm-hmm.
it's like grief often creates this identity shift,
Yeah.
something in our identity that we need to release or let go or calibrate to another identity. Who am I without this person? Who am I without this money? Who am I without this belief? Who am I without, you know, without relying on XYZ, the government or anything else? So it could really bring up this, I don't want to say crisis, but this shakeup, this awakening with our identity. Do you have any tools or anything that would help us navigate this?
First and foremost, it's learning how to set boundaries. I mean, that's what's coming in loud and clear for me right now is I mean, again, something we were never taught, right? Something that is that is self-taught. And I've had to learn this in hard ways for sure. But setting boundaries with what you're letting into your field. What are you absorbing? What information are you absorbing? What projections are you absorbing and taking on as your own? We need to be checking in with ourselves constantly, because if we're not conscious about making those check-ins with ourselves, then we're just allowing the outside world to dictate who we are, and the thoughts and the programs that are running, which are in turn dictating how we experience our day to day, how we experience our life, and ultimately the reality that we are creating. And so I think that that's the number one thing is how can we do the check-ins and set boundaries? Screen time, scrolling, like there's so much out there that's happening right now. And yes, we want to be informed and aware, but we also need to be protecting ourselves, protecting our energy, and finding ways to find joy, to experience joy, things that are high vibrational, because that's ultimately where we want to direct our focus and energy, right? And attention is the most valuable currency there is. It's far more valuable than money, because attention leads to money. Where you place your attention, right, is where everything else flows. So that would be the number one practice I am thinking about right now, because it's the easiest to begin implementing. And then comes, learning how to regulate your emotions, your nervous system, and learning how to identify somebody else's projections from what's true for you. Oh, and this is the other thing too, discernment. It's there's a lot of information out there, and a lot of people are speaking about this in different ways, myself included. Listen to what resonates as truth for you. Listen to what, and it might be, just because it doesn't resonate doesn't necessarily mean it's not truth, but it might signal to you that you don't need to take that information in right now, right? It's not a match for you at this moment in time. And then we can find ways to come together in terms of just how can we meet people where they are on their journey. We're all at different points on our journey. So how can we meet each other where we are and accept each other where we are? And I think curiosity is the number one piece of all of this. If we can have curiosity for hearing each other out, and openness, open hearts, that's how we build this. That's how we come together in love and unity ultimately. But it's, again, it's if you look at it from this angle of, I want to change the world, how are we going to, fight the system and build something bigger? It's start bit by bit. Just start with these practices.
Start with boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like literally.
Seriously, yes, and it creates a ripple effect. That's it.
Right. Yeah. Because, and you and I, we love what we do when we work with people, but it's just like, that's a real thing. We can have these big ideas of changing the world and having this vision, but it's like, start with your own boundaries and your own life, and protect your own energy, and use discernment, and know when to shut out, the commentary and the content and all the information that's out there. I wanted to get your thoughts on, the concept of a new paradigm.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have so many thoughts on this. This is something I've been getting downloads on for years, before I knew I was even receiving downloads. I started receiving what I now know to be telepathic communication. It was coming in very clearly, and I would just write it down. I was like, oh, interesting. I'm just receiving all these ideas. But it was about people from various industries coming together. And I was seeing all industries: medical industry, financial industry, um, psychology, I mean, you name it. I'm drawing a blank right now, but all these different industries coming together to create systems that benefit the whole instead of just a select few. Because what I started realizing was, and this is around the time I was getting downloads about consciousness, and I was seeing, rings on a tree. Consciousness is not hierarchical. It's just not. It's expansive. Yes, we're raising our vibration. There are higher frequencies, but consciousness itself it expands. It's spatial, right? Like we were just talking about with time. And what I was seeing with this, and what has become even more clear to me lately, and what I've been receiving, is it's about communities being built, voices being used, communities being built, and then there being this sort of, I'm getting chills right now, this mycelium network, like a fungi network underground with the tree roots. And that's what I see for this. It's a global network of people who are not afraid to use their voice, and people who are really stepping into the role that their soul came here to embody, sharing their medicine. Because we each, like I said earlier, we're each a puzzle piece here. Every single person here matters. And we each have our own medicine, and you don't know how that medicine is going to help someone. And the way I think of it is, your community, Vanessa, they resonate with you. They resonate with how you speak. They resonate with your medicine. They might hear me on here, and there might be people who think, oh, I really resonate with her, or I know someone who would resonate with her, or I have an opportunity here that I want to talk about. There might also be people who hear me and think, nah, I don't really resonate with her. And I think that's the beauty of this, is we're coming together with a shared mission. It doesn't matter whose medicine it is. It's the fact that it's the broader goal here of creating a new paradigm of higher consciousness, of I want to say expanded consciousness, expanded awareness, but higher frequency. It's about love, it's about unity, it's about acceptance, And it's about building systems where a rising tide lifts all ships. And so we all rise together and communities are overlapping and working with each other. That's how I see this.
I love that. I love that. And I'm receiving what you're saying, and I'm kind of coming up with my own summary. It's almost like we are rebuilding our relationship with each other.
We are 100%. It's like literally we are children on a playground right now.
Yeah.
This it's not this is only a four-person game. Sorry. Like it's not that
Yeah.
anymore. We're creating new games to play.
Right, right. Oh, I love it. I already feel it, like you and I can like go down
Oh
the
God, I
path
know.
and the rabbit hole of a new paradigm, or just, just everything that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
I think this is a good space to wrap it up. And before we officially wrap it up, do you have a book recommendation that's either helped you on your journey, or something that might be helpful for the conversation that we've been having, or a quote that you can leave us with?
Two books come to mind. One I'm reading right now. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it's a beautiful book, super timely and relevant because it's about what we can learn from indigenous wisdom, which I think we need now more than ever. How do we learn from nature, the plants of the earth? How do we learn from the sacred wisdom and knowledge that has been passed down energetically and has been passed down in the way in the customs of certain tribes and groups around our planet who work in tandem with Mother Earth, which is really what I see this new paradigm being is we're not destroying the earth anymore. We're working with her. We're working with the infinite abundant supply of what she has for us and how we can help her. And this book is really beautiful because it also blends scientific knowledge as well. And I think it's a great opportunity to pause and slow down and read before bed instead of doom scrolling and find a way to connect in with yourself and with nature because that's what we need now more than ever is connecting with nature. The other book,
Yes.
and there's one more book that came to me,
Okay.
Start with Why by Simon Sinek, because it's about finding your why, and I love the way that he um, portrays it. There's a sort of diagram. It's why, how, and what, and it's bringing the focus back to the why. And then he also talks about the pioneers, the early adopters, the late adopters, the laggards curve, which is really important and timely for what we're experiencing right now on our planet. The pioneers and the early adopters are going first, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now. So
Very interesting. Thank you for those. And I feel like those are like books that will take you on a journey.
they will in
Like
different ways.
in different ways. Yes. It's not
Yeah.
just something that you read and forget about. It will literally, it might open you up to new things. So thank you so much for that. And please connect with Marston if you've read and resonated with her message here, her energy, her wisdom, everything that she's offered. We have her Instagram, her YouTube, and her TikTok, and her website listed here in the description. And her website is thebridgingcatalyst.com. And what is one powerful way that people can either work with you or connect with you deeper?
I consider myself a trusted advisor. So whether that's a spiritual advisor or an advisor of helping you break through to the next level in your business using my business consulting background, I really blend intuitive intelligence with my consulting background, and I work with the quantum field in these ways. And so, if you're looking to connect with a loved one that crossed over, if you're looking to have a better understanding of grief and death and what happens after death, or how to develop your own psychic abilities or mediumship abilities, or if you're just looking for a partner in this who can help you reach that next level and connect with your guides or higher consciousness, I offer all of that, and I'd be honored to walk with you.
So powerful. And thank you for your time and your energy and your wisdom for today's conversation. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Vanessa. This has been so fun, and I could talk with you forever. So
Yeah. Yeah, you and I.
I know.
Good
Take this
thing we have a
offline.
limit today.
Yeah, I know.
Good
I
thing we have
know.
that boundary, because you and I over smoothies, we can like go on and on.
Yes,
I love
speaking
it.
of boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of boundaries, absolutely. And if you resonated with this conversation, please share this with at least one friend or family member. I know that someone probably already came to mind as you were listening to today's conversation, someone who can use this as medicine or just a supportive perspective. So please copy and paste this link, share it with a friend. We greatly appreciate it. And namaste. Have a great day.
Thank you.